Hello guys, and welcome to Talk Football with Tyrone, and welcome to our video today. So in our video today we are going to look at the second part of our Manchester City treble winning team video. We are going to understand how Guardiola made tactical changes post the January transfer window to see Manchester City emerge victorious. Before we continue, like, share and subscribe to this channel for more videos like this. Upon the departure of Alexander Zinchenko to Arsenal, who was a key player in the Guardiola system as an inverted fullback, Guardiola had to adapt by bringing in Cancelo and playing him down the left. Cancelo performed quite well under this position, but though he roamed forward and left Rodri isolated in midfield. You can see here how Guardiola effectively deployed Cancelo as an inverted fullback, and this enabled him to link up with Rodri and Kyle Walker. And Rodri together with Cancelo are building up play for Manchester City from the back, with two centre-backs, Nathan Aké and Rúben Dias, playing as two single pivot center backs. But the central overload that was created by teams limited Manchester City's ball progression and therefore decided to go down the wide channels. But this during the first half of the season, Manchester City lined up with their usual 4-3-3 formation, with Cancelo and Walker playing in the fullbacks position. Gundogan and De Bruyne occupied the half spaces, with Erling Haaland leading the line. Guardiola started to deploy Cancelo as a secondary pivot to Rodri during build-up, and this was effective in the 2021-2022 season, and further he started to employ Walker as an inverted fullback when Manchester City had most of the ball. But the problem with Joao Cancelo is that Joao Cancelo will push and advance forward and occupy these positions, creating chances after chances, but this going offensively and out of his position resulted in many problems for Manchester City. Why? Because the gap that he left behind was not able to be sealed by Rodri as a single pivot, and this created a lot of problems for Manchester City during counter-attacks, as we saw in the 3-3 draw at St. James's Park earlier in the season. Cancelo was not disciplined in this position. Despite Walker playing as an inverted fullback, though he was fast, he was not quick enough to recover his position during counter-attacks, and this saw Guardiola drop Joao Cancelo for Rico Lewis, and Rico Lewis came in and played quite well in this system. Let's see how he did it. Now, Manchester City in their default 4-3-3 formation earlier in the season saw the likes of Cancelo dropped and Walker got injured, and saw the introduction of Rico Lewis and Nathan Aké. Nathan Aké was deployed as a left back who tucked in and played as a left centre back, with Rico Lewis joining Rodri in midfield. Now, they formed their usual 3-5 formation that we've seen Guardiola employ this season. Unlike Cancelo, Lewis was disciplined in his position and linked up quite well with Rodri in midfield. And this saw Manchester City start dominating the center of the pitch, leaving Gundogan and De Bruyne free to receive the ball. Lewis was also keen in making line-breaking passes to pick up Grealish, Haaland, De Bruyne and Mahrez, who were playing ahead of him, and they formed this quite compactable double pivot in front of Manchester City's defense. Now, the problem with Rico Lewis in this position is that when facing elite wingers in the Premier League, most wingers were able to beat Rico Lewis in a 1v1 position compared to having a player like Kyle Walker in this situation. And this created problems for Manchester City, since most teams started targeting Manchester City's right-hand side. And this saw Guardiola bring back John Stones, who had come from injury. And this was kind of a silver bullet for Guardiola's team. Now, let's see how John Stones played. So John Stones started up as an orthodox right back, inverting in midfield to play alongside Rodri. Now, and comparing John Stones with Rico Lewis is that John Stones was physical and was comfortable on the ball under pressure, and therefore John Stones was able to shove off most Premier League opponents, as well as creating chances as well as making tackles and winning the ball in midfield. So when Manchester City were building up in their 4-3-3 formation and Gundogan and De Bruyne advancing forward, John Stones would be dropping from his unorthodox right-back position and join Rodri in midfield. This ensured Manchester City had height and physicality in midfield, and therefore they were able to tighten up things in midfield. Akanji played as a wide centre-back together with Nathan Aké, with Rúben Dias playing as a sweeper in behind the two. Stones in this position was disciplined and knew when to pick up runners in the half spaces and link up with Rodri. Stones has an excellent ball progression attribute and he played quite well in this midfield position. This season, John Stones has been playing well in this position. The problem with John Stones in midfield is that John Stones, unlike Kyle Walker, is not fast enough to recover playing in the fullback position. And this created problems for Manchester City because John Stones is slow to recover from the midfield position and drop back to his right back position. This created all sorts of problems for Manchester City. But this was a surprise since Kyle Walker had come back and he's known to have the best recovery pace amongst most right backs. So this gave Guardiola a conundrum to know how to incorporate both Stones and Walker in his team, since Stones was good in midfield and building up play alongside Rodri, and Walker's excellent recovery pace created a sort of blessing for Guardiola, because now he needed a system whereby he could deploy Stones and Walker at the team together. And this came up after we look at previous match where Guardiola had deployed Fernandinho as a right centre-back who would push from centre-back position to midfield to play alongside Gundogan when they played Arsenal in February 2019. This gave license and freedom for the likes of Kevin De Bruyne and Ilkay Gundogan, who were pushed high up the pitch and thrived quite well, with the latter having a stellar end of the season campaign. Now, Manchester City had now had the perfect formation for Guardiola. Guardiola was so pleased with this formation, and this saw Nathan Aké, who picked up an injury, leaving the team, and Akanji being played as an orthodox left back. John Stones started playing as a right centre back, with Walker coming in to dominate the right hand flank, and this enabled Manchester City to outmaneuver and dominate opponents in elite competitions such as Champions League. And we saw how Kyle Walker, playing in this position, was able to deal with pacey wingers 1v1 and taking on those wingers quite well, winning the ball and dominating the right hand flank. And this is something that Guardiola had missed, but with the reintroduction of Kyle Walker in the squad, Manchester City were able to solve these problems. As we saw in the game against Real Madrid, Walker had Vinicius Jr. and prevented him from progressing with the ball high up the pitch to create havoc for Manchester City. Now, Stones in this double pivot position exemplified this position and actually became one of the most improved players in the Manchester City squad. Stones together with Rodri linked up quite well, and this we saw in the game against Bayern Munich and RB Leipzig. Stones was able to pick De Bruyne, Bernardo Silva and Haaland in the half spaces and in the zone 14. His combination with Rodri ensured they were able to know when to counter press, when the ball is lost by the team, and when to sit off. And this enabled them to create a safety net in which Manchester City were able to clog up and stifle opponents in midfield. When Manchester City lost possession, John Stones, as Walker was able to cover the winger, John Stones was able to drop back and play in his right centre-back position. And this created all sorts of issues for the teams because Gundogan and De Bruyne will drop back and play in their normal midfield position. In some instances, John Stones will also push forward and join the attacking lineup. As we saw in the final, he was deployed as a right attacking midfielder in the 4-2-4-1 formation that Guardiola employed. You can see here how Manchester City stretch the opponent and clog up the center of the pitch. This tactical shift saw Guardiola win the Champions League after failing countable times in Bayern Munich and Manchester City, and Guardiola has won the Holy Grail at Manchester City. Guardiola also won the treble at Manchester City, joining Sir Alex Ferguson as the only two managers in Premier League history to win the treble in England. Guardiola's tactical shift throughout the season was countable, and at some point it looked like it's going to become a disastrous season for Manchester City. Guardiola wins his second treble, and we like to see how he will perform and evolve tactically next season. If you've stayed with us, remember we also have a video on how Manchester United won the treble in 1998-1999 season. Click the link in the description area below to visit our Patreon channel. If you've stayed with us till the end of this video and enjoyed this video, subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. Thanks for watching.